Welcome, everyone, to a little bit of light awaiting Moshiach. There is a work called Sefer HaIkrim, which means the Book of Principles, written in 1425 by Rav Yosef Elbo. And it is about the principles of Judaism, of the Torah. And the Ikrim says that there are three main principles. And those principles are Metzias Hashem, the existence of God, Hashgacha l'schar v'onesh, God's providence for reward and punishment, divine reward and punishment, the Torah min hashamayim, and Torah from heaven. These are the three main principles of the Torah, and these three principles have many different subcategories to them. So, for instance, when you talk about Metzias Hashem, God's existence, under that falls the fact that God preceded everything, created everything. God is eternal. God has no physicality. When we talk about Torah min hashamayim, Torah from heaven, that includes what the Ikrim calls Yedias Hashem, that Hashem knows everything, that Hashem, the concept of prophecy, that Hashem communicates with man. And under the Hashgacha l'schar v'onesh, under the providence of reward and punishment, included in that is the reward and punishment that can come in this world and the reward and punishment that comes in the next world. And he says that what we see how these are the three important principles of our faith, because the three additional blessings that we have in the Musaf of Rosh Hashanah all represent these three ideas. Malchias, we know that the three additional blessings that we have in the Musaf are called Malchias, Zechronos, and Shofris. Kingship, remembrances, and Shofar, where we read verses of that talk about Hashem as king, Hashem as the one that Zechronos, he remembers and watches over everything, and Shofars is the verses about Shofar. And he says that the fact that the men of the Great Assembly who instituted the Shemona Esrei and instituted the additional service of Shemona Esrei, the Musaf service of Rosh Hashanah, the fact that the additional blessings of that service revolve around these principles is to teach us that by a person who properly believes in these principles, that person will win a favorable verdict when it comes to the judgment on Rosh Hashanah. And he points out how each one represents. If you look at the blessing of Malchias, it talks about Hashem as king, that everyone should accept Hashem as king, which he says falls under our belief in the existence of Hashem. Zechronos, that section of the Musaf, talks about how Hashem watches over everything and takes everything into account and remembers everything and judges us based on our actions. And Shofar, the Shofras, that blessing starts off talking about the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai and the Torah that was blown at Mount Sinai. And there was no actual shofar that was blown at Mount Sinai, but we know there was the sound of a shofar. And very interestingly, the Ikrim writes that the Torah was given with a sound of the shofar, a sound of the shofar that we never has and never will be until the coming of Moshiach. Because the sound of the shofar that came out by Mount Sinai, there's no blowing a shofar. The kolos of Rakim, the fact that we had thunder, we had lightning, thunder and lightning exists. But a sound of the shofar without a shofar, that is something that is unique to the giving of the Torah and will only happen again when, as he says, until the time of redemption. That'll be the point of time where the Torah of truth shall be publicized to the entire world. And regarding that time, it says that Hashem will blow a shofar. And so there is a connection between the shofar of giving of the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai, which was the giving of the Torah to the Jewish people, accompanied by the blowing of a shofar. And there will be, and that was again a unique blowing that never was, because it was a sound of a shofar without a shofar. But there will be that again in the time of the redemption. Then again, there'll be the sound of a shofar without a shofar, because then too will be the revelation of the Torah of truth to the entire world. And that again, as the pasuk says, Hashem Elokim v'ashofar yitaka. Hashem, our God, will blow a shofar. Okay. Then he talks about how the importance of these three principles as the foundation for our religion, and what he calls the sibas hatzlacha, the cause for all success, is actually incorporated in a pasuk in the book of Yeshaya. Now that pasuk reads like this: Ki Hashem shoftenu, Hashem is our God. Hashem mechokekenu, Hashem is our lawgiver. Hashem alkenu, Hashem is our king. Hu yoshienu, he will save us. So the Ikrim explains how each one of these principles lies in each one of these words. When the pasuk says Ki Hashem shoftenu, Hashem is our God, that represents how Hashem exists and is our king and is our judge. Ki Hashem shoftenu means Hashem is our judge, and in that merit that he judges us, that could be a merit that we should be saved. And then the next thing is, after 1 second, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Hashem is our judge, refers to the fact that Hashem watches over what we do and gives out reward and punishment. So the first step is Hashem is our judge, which means that Hashem judges us, he watches over our actions, and may that be a merit that he should save us, that he should save us. Then it says Hashem is our lawgiver, which means to say that if, as judge of our actions, that's not enough to merit, then Hashem is our lawgiver. He gave the laws of the Torah, and he can decide how he's going to deal with those laws. And then, if that's not enough for us to be saved, then we say Hashem Malkeinu. Hashem is our king. Hashem exists. He is the king over the world, and as the king, he can decide what he wants to do in order to save his people. And at the end, says the Ikrim, what we have here is that we have these three principles of faith, and in the merit, the merit of having all three of them, of having all three of these principles of faith, that we truly believe them and live by them, that Hashem exists, that Hashem gives reward and punishment, and that Torah, he gave us a Torah, with these three principles of belief, hu yoshienu, at the end, with all three of them, that will be the merit together that we should be saved. Now, he first began talking about how these principles would be merits to be saved, to have a good judgment on Rosh Hashanah. And then he brings in this pasuk. Now, this pasuk is not talking about Rosh Hashanah. The pasuk, according to many commentaries, according to commentaries, is actually referring to the coming of Moshiach. That when Moshiach comes and we will be saved, it'll be in the merit of the fact that we possess these three principles of faith. That again, Hashem exists, which includes Hashem being king, Hashem being our creator. It includes Torah min hashamayim, Torah from heaven. It includes, and that's the second one. And the third one is that Hashem watches over us for reward and punishment. If we have these three principles, if we truly believe them and follow them and live with them, then this is our merit to be able to be saved in times of Mashiach. So what we have here is these three principles of faith that, again, as he began his discussion, all are represented in the three additional blessings of Musaf, in Malchias, kingship, Zechroinus, remembrances, B'shofras, and Shofar. The three principles of faith, again, that they represent is Malchias, represents Hashem's existence. Zechroinus represents that Hashem watches over us for reward and punishment. And Shofras represents the Torah from heaven that was accompanied by the blowing of the shofar. If we, as he says, our sages incorporated these principles into that prayer on Rosh Hashanah to tell us that when we truly have those beliefs, that will be our merit to be able to merit a good judgment on Rosh Hashanah. And then he brings that verse in Yeshaya that talks about Hashem saving us. Again, some commentaries say it's referring to Hashem saving us from Ashur, from Assyria, and the destruction they brought upon the Jewish people. And some say it's referring to Mashiach, which means, again, these three principles that we focus on Rosh Hashanah are the principles that will also bring us Mashiach. So this is really something to think about. As we know, our prayers on Rosh Hashanah revolve a lot around the coming of Mashiach. When in every one of the Shemona Esrei of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we talk about Hashem revealing himself, that Hashem give his fear and his awe over everyone. Everyone should come to accept him as king. This is a main theme in the prayers of Rosh Hashanah. But we should also think about that the prayers of Rosh Hashanah are meant to instill within us these principles of faith. Hashem's existence as our king, and he's our king. Hashem punishes and rewards and punishes. And that Hashem gave us his guidance, his Torah from heaven. When we focus on those three things, we merit a good judgment. And as we focus on those things to get a good judgment on Rosh Hashanah, it also becomes our merit to be able to be finally redeemed with the coming of Mashiach, which we need so desperately in our very difficult times that we face. And so let us utilize Rosh Hashanah to strengthen these principles of faith so that we merit a good judgment and that we merit the ultimate salvation, the coming of Mashiach, Tzidkenu b'mheira v'yameinu. Wishing you all a ksiva v'chasim tova, a good year, a blessed year, a year of good health, of nachas, a year of simchas, and a year that we should merit the ultimate simcha of the coming of Mashiach. This has been a little bit of light. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful Shabbos and a wonderful Rosh Hashanah.